Tughlaq Prince and a Persian. The encounter. Tughlugh Timor Khan, who lived from 1347 to 1363, a prince, is said to have owed his conversion to Islam to a holy man from Bukhara by the name Shaykh Jamal al-Din. This sheikh, in company with a number of travelers, had unwittingly trespassed on the game preserves of the prince, who ordered them to be bound hand and foot and brought before him. In reply to the prince's angry question, how they had dared interfere with his hunting, the sheikh pleaded that they were strangers and were quite unaware that they were trespassing on forbidden ground. Learning that they were Persians, the prince said that a dog was worth more than a Persian. Yes, replied the sheikh, if we had not the true faith, we would indeed be worse than the dogs. Struck with his reply, the Khan ordered this bold Persian to be brought before him on his return from hunting. When the prince came back from hunting, he took the sheikh aside and asked him to explain what he meant by those words and what was faith. The sheikh then set before him the doctrine of Islam with such fervor and zeal that the heart of the Khan, that before had been hard as a stone, was melted like wax, and so terrible a picture did the holy man draw of the state of unbelief that the prince was convinced of the blindness of his own errors. The prince reflected and said, "Were I now to make a profession of the faith of Islam, I would not be able to lead my subjects into the true path. But bear with me a little, and when I have entered into the possession of the kingdom of my forefathers, come to me again." For the empire of Chagatay had by this time been broken up into a number of petty princedoms, and it was many years before Tughlaq Timor succeeded in uniting under his sway the whole empire as before. Meanwhile, Shaykh Jamal al-Din had returned to his home, where he fell dangerously ill, when, at the point of death, he said to his son Rashid al-Din, "Tughlaq Timor will one day become a great monarch. Fail not to go and salute him in my name and fearlessly remind him of the promise he made me." Some years later, when Tughlaq Timor had re-won the empire of his fathers, Rashid al-Din made his way to the camp of the Khan to fulfill the last wishes of his father, but in spite of all his efforts, he could not gain an audience with the Khan. At length he devised the following expedient. One day, in the early morning, he began to chant the call to prayers, close to the Khan's tent. Enraged at having his slumbers disturbed in this way, the prince ordered him to be brought into his presence, whereupon Rashid al-Din delivered his father's message. Tughlugh Khan was not unmindful of his promise and said, "Ever since I ascended the throne, I have had it on my mind that I made that promise, but the person to whom I gave the pledge never came. Now you are welcome." He then repeated the profession of faith and became a Muslim. It is reported that the day Tughlugh Khan accepted Islam, 160,000 persons cut off their hair and accepted Islam. On that morning, the sun of bounty rose out of the east of divine favor and effaced the dark night of unbelief. In many ways, Muslims were able to win over to their faith the savage hordes who had destroyed their centers of culture. By slow degrees, Islam thus began to emerge out of the ruins of its former ascendancy and take its place again as a dominant faith after more than a century of depression.